So, can you prove God exists using nothing but pure logic? For centuries, this very question has captivated some of history's most brilliant thinkers. Today, we're going to dive into two incredibly powerful arguments from two philosophers who took completely opposite paths to try and find the answer. I mean, that's the fundamental challenge, right? You can't put God under a microscope. You can't rewind time and watch the universe begin. So if you're going to build a logical case, where do you even start? Well, for Thomas Aquinas and René Descartes, the answer to that question would define their entire philosophical mission. And honestly, it would go on to shape the entire course of Western thought. And their starting points could not be more different. One path starts by looking out at the physical world we can all see and touch, and then reasoning backward from there. The other path? It starts by looking inward, doubting literally everything about the outside world just to find one single unshakable truth inside the mind. Now, this isn't some small disagreement. It's one of the biggest divides in intellectual history. It's the moment we see thinking pivot from the ancient world to the modern one. So here's our game plan. We'll look at these two incredible paths. First, we'll see how the world became a clue for Aquinas. Then, we'll explore how the mind itself became the key for Descartes. We're going to see why this split created a full-blown philosophical revolution. And we'll end by asking you, which path do you find more convincing? All right, let's set the stage. On one side, you have Aquinas, back in the 13th century. He's following a path laid down by ancient thinkers like Aristotle. You start with the real, solid stuff outside of us. But then, 400 years later, Descartes comes along and forges this new, radically modern path that begins not with the world, but with the self. So let's start with Aquinas. His whole method is what philosophers call a cosmological argument. He doesn't begin with some lofty definition or pre-packaged idea. Nope. He starts with an observation. He just looks at the universe around him and starts reasoning from things he can see, from the effects, and traces them back to an ultimate cause. In his massive work, the Summa Theologica, Aquinas lays out five distinct arguments, which he called his 5 ways to prove God's existence. And they cover everything from causation to perfection. But to really get a feel for his method, we're just going to zero in on the first and most famous one, the argument from motion. Okay, so the power of Aquinas' argument is its super simple starting point, a fact that, as he says, is certain and evident to our senses. Things move. A ball rolls, a tree grows, planets fly through space. And his first premise is just this: nothing moves all by itself. Something that has the potential to move can only be actually moved by something else that's already moving. So, you've got this chain, right? A is moved by B, which is moved by C, which is moved by D. But does that chain just go back forever? Aquinas says, no way, that's logically impossible. See, an infinite chain of movers would mean there was no first mover to get it all started. And if nothing ever started the chain, well, then nothing would be moving right now. He uses this great analogy. A staff only moves because a hand moves it. If there's no hand to start things off, that staff is just going to sit there forever. So the whole point is, this chain of movers has to end somewhere. There must be a first, unmoved mover that kicks off all the other motion without being moved by anything else. And this, Aquinas says, is what everyone understands to be God. But here's where he goes a step beyond Aristotle. For Aquinas, God isn't just the one who flicked the first domino millions of years ago. No, God is the continuous cause of existence itself, holding everything in being right here, right now. Okay, get ready for a hard pivot. 400 years later, René Descartes shows up and takes the exact opposite approach. He basically decides he can't trust anything. Not his senses, not the outside world, nothing. He wants to find one single thing that is so certain, so unshakable, that he can use it as a foundation to rebuild all of human knowledge. And he finds it. He realizes that even if an evil demon is tricking him about everything, even if he's doubting, he has to exist as the thing that is doing the doubting. The very act of thinking proves his own existence. Cogito ergo sum. This is it. This is his one solid starting point. From his tiny spark of internal certainty, he's going to try and prove the existence of everything else, including God. So how in the world does he get from I exist to God exists? Well, his first argument is just fascinating. He starts digging through the ideas that are inside his own mind, and he finds one that he's pretty sure couldn't have come from him, the idea of a supremely perfect being. He argues, look, I'm an imperfect, finite guy. How could I, on my own, invent the concept of infinite perfection? He concludes that the idea must have been planted there by a being that actually is perfect. It's like a craftsman stamping his trademark on his work. His second proof is even more of a mind-bender. It's a famous one called the ontological argument, and it's all about pure logic. To get how it works, let's start with this analogy. Think about a triangle. By its very definition, its very essence, what is a triangle? It's a shape with 3 angles that add up to 180 degrees. You literally cannot imagine a triangle without that property. It's part of the package. Okay, you with me? Now, let's apply that exact same logic to the idea of God. Descartes defines God as a supremely perfect being. So, just like having 3 angles is baked into the essence of a triangle, having all perfections is baked into the very essence of God. That's just what the idea means. And here it is, the final step. That's both brilliant and, for many people, totally infuriating. Descartes argues that existence itself is a kind of perfection. It's simply more perfect to exist than to not exist. So, if God is a supremely perfect being, he cannot possibly lack the perfection of existence. To say a perfect being does not exist becomes a logical contradiction. It's like saying, I drew a triangle that doesn't have 3 angles. It just makes no sense. Phew. Okay, so we have these 2 completely different arguments. One starts with a rolling stone in the world, the other starts with an idea in the mind. But why is this divide so important? I mean, why does this matter so much? Because it's about way more than just proving God. It's about where we believe the very foundation of knowledge is located. And that's the key. This shift is everything. Before Descartes, for thousands of years, knowledge was grounded in the world, in an objective reality outside of us that we learned about through our senses. But after Descartes, the foundation of knowledge becomes the mind itself and its own powers of reason. This turn inward is the defining move of all of modern philosophy. It's what kicks off the great debate between the rationalists, who trust reason, and the empiricists, who trust the senses. And the ripple effects were enormous. From this point forward, the central subject of philosophy really becomes the human mind. How do we think? What are the limits of our reason? How does our own consciousness shape reality? Descartes basically put the human self at the absolute center of the philosophical stage. And, it's pretty much stayed there ever since. So now that we've walked down both of these incredible paths, let's put them side by side and really nail down the core differences. Here it is, all laid out. Aquinas starts with observable facts out in the world, like motion. Descartes starts with the unbeatable certainty of his own thought. Aquinas reasons from an effect, something happening in the world, back to its ultimate cause. Descartes reasons from an idea in his mind back to its ultimate cause. So for Aquinas, God is the first cause we discover outside of us. But for Descartes, God is discovered within us, as the only possible source for our idea of perfection. Which brings us right back to the central question. Both Aquinas and Descartes built these powerful, incredibly rational arguments, but they force you, to make a fundamental choice. Where does proof for anything really have to begin? Does it start with the shared external world that we can all point to and observe? Or does it have to start with the private internal world of your own mind, the only thing you can ever know with absolute 100% certainty? That's the question their legacies leave for us.